Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for standing by. My name is Stanford, the moderator for your conference call. Welcome to the conference call of AIA Engineering Limited. We have with us today the management team of AIA Engineering Limited. At this moment, all participants are on listen-only mode. Later, we will conduct a question and answer session. At that time, if you have a question, please press star, then 1. I would now like to turn the conference over to Mr. Kunal Shah and Sanjay Majumdar. Thank you, and over to you, sir.
Hey, thank you so much. A very warm welcome to all of you. Thank you for joining our call. We've got as usual, I'll run through some housekeeping numbers for the quarter, give you a small update on the business, and we can then move on to questions and answers. So finally, we ended the fourth quarter and got past a tumultuous year. We've done 80,000 tons, 79,377,000 tons this quarter, and ended the full year almost at par with last year. We did 267,000 tons full year last year and closed this year with 266,000 tons. So we are happy that in a very difficult year, we managed to be at par with the previous year and could make up, volumes in the fourth quarter. The large part of that catch up in the fourth quarter is the pent up demand within cement. As you know, there was a sharp recovery in consumption levels and, utilization at cement plants across the country and likewise across the world. So, and on account of that, we had a good non-mining, demand that came in this quarter and, which built into the 79,000 tons that we did this quarter. We produced 62,400 tons this quarter, and a large part of that, was because of the inventories that we started moving. We built up inventory for some of that requirement, and that got liquidated this quarter. So overall, there was reduction in inventory this quarter, also leading to some working capital improvement. Our sales, the INR value was at 2,818 crores, which is comparable to 2,884 crores last year. So both years, right from, all major line items are virtually the same. EBITDA was 822 crores last year to 827 this year, and profit before tax 718 versus 729, and then profit after tax was 590 last year, was at 566 this year. But last year we got a 20 crore deferred tax reversal on account of the new tax regime, and which is why there was an increase in profit after tax. Otherwise, virtually, the numbers are comparable for both years. Fourth quarter in particular had some amount of skew in terms of raw material increase. As you know, most major commodities, are on a tear rather, and they've gone up a few times, and we are seeing the same. As steel prices go up, all the downstream, material, including scrap, has seen a sharp increase, and which is reflected in our costs. So our rupees per kilo in total sales to total volume last year was about 100 rupees a kilo, and we are seeing some increase of that to 105 rupees a kilo. But over the next few quarters, we'll see all of that price pass through come in. So this is something with a lag and a lead and a lag effect. So that all raw material prices are generally a price pass through, and you will see that over the next few quarters our realization moving up and a lot of that increased costs moving up as well. But on a net basis, we are almost 8 to 10% absolute increase in cost of goods sold, and most of that being represented by the increase in raw material costs, and which is where fourth quarter, if you were to compare with sequential second quarter, there was almost a 10% reduction, on an operating margin, or a 9% reduction in operating margin or EBITDA levels. So the first three quarters in the fourth quarter looks structurally different on account of this one parameter, which is raw material cost, and over the next few quarters you'll see some of that normalizing. I think from a currency other income standpoint, there is, the MEIS benefits now withdrawn, or it's capped, and it's not replaced with the new scheme, which is RoDTEP, Remission of Duties and Taxes on Exports, which is a WTO compliant reimbursement, remission of the taxes for which credits are not available. So that scheme's, implemented but not announced. So to that extent, we don't know what that number would be. We've not provided that in our books. So there is a reduction. If you look at quarter 1 and 2 versus quarter 4, there's almost a 10 crore reduction, on account of just that. This quarter, because of our exports, we would have been about 11, 12 crores. So that's what, is not included in our other income. The other big line item is in terms of foreign exchange. Last quarter, we saw increase, the rupee run up almost to 75 levels. And, when we closed December, all that translated into realized and unrealized gains. While this quarter, some of that, while the rupee also appreciated a bit, some of that got included in our sales price. So, that's an offset to that extent. Our treasury income is at par and reflects the lower yields on most debt products. So this quarter, we've done our EBITDA of 192 crores, about 22.38% on an EBITDA to sales, and 137 crores of profit after tax. Moving on, there's reduction in raw material between the third and the fourth quarter. Our reduction in stock, as you can see, because of we sold some material out of stock, and slight increase in revenue in receivables in line with the increased sales this quarter. But overall, there is a reduction in working capital. Total days have reduced from 120 to 117. So it's almost at par with the previous quarter. So working capital is tightly under control. And receivables from customers are absolutely on track. We are happy to report there is no issue in terms of cash flow or overdue situation. It is largely under control. Next, I would just give you a view into the segmental sales this quarter. We did 49,000 tons, in the mining space, up from 43 in the third quarter last year. And as you will see, 29,700 in the non-mining, which includes cement and utility. And that is sharply increased from 21,000 tons. So the first quarter was 12,000, then 21, and now 29,000 tons. So it's largely balanced, whatever we had lost in the first quarter. And so the full year mining stands at 177,000 tons versus 180 this year. And non-mining, which was 89,900 last year, at 85,458. And so last year total was at 267,000 tons. We closed that with 266,000 tons. So that's as far as numbers are concerned. Nothing abnormal except the raw material and the price pass through thereof. There are a few updates on the business front. First and the foremost is our continued inability, or rather even more restricted ability, last month, 2 months, for our engineers to travel. And as we have discussed many times in the past, travel is a very integral part of our business development activity. These are hardcore engineered solutions which require discussions with staff on the floor, with managers, with supervisors, walk through them, walk them through our solutions, the benefits, keep measuring, trials that we have done. And it involves a lot of mutual confidence building exercises, right? And that requires in person. Our business is not very attuned to, being conducted through virtual meetings. And on account of that, we continue to be hampered. We are, like the rest of the world, we are optimistic that now a solution is in front of us in terms of vaccines. It could be 2 months, it could be 6 months, whatever that time it takes. But, that's clearly at a time when, our people will be able to travel. We are hoping borders open up. There are many places where today there is restriction on people in India to travel, or our staff outside of India also to travel between countries. What protocols get put in place, quarantine rules, vaccine passports and all sorts of things. So we're in the midst of figuring those things out. And as things normalize and travel begins in 3 to 6 months' time, I think that's where we'll get back to our business development and the whole solution in the whole philosophy around migrating, converting forged to high chrome, and in addition now to sell the mill lining solution to mining customers. So that's the most important update, that business continues status quo. While it's we don't enjoy this phase where we've got the teams, we've got the knowledge, we've got everything to go out and keep doing our work. It's very heartening that we are still able to service this large volume. 266,000 tons is a very material large amount to produce, to execute, to supply, to make, despite hundreds of challenges in terms of finding containers and times it takes to reach the customer site. We are still not defaulted on delivery dates, right? So we're making sure all that gets done. After supply, there would be operational issues, process issues, measuring performances. They're able to do all of that despite being remote, right? So that itself was something that we worried about as COVID hit last year. But we've got a phenomenal team that's making sure that customer does not suffer, and we continue to engage with them as required, to make sure current engine continues. So that's the first update. Second is from our business in Canada. As you all know, our competition had filed an application with the Canadian Border Services Agency to look at our pricing and to determine whether there is any pricing that can lead to dumping or to lead to dumping action. And so that's a sub judice process. We are engaging. We'll not be able to talk much about it right now because we are engaged in defending our position on it. As part of that process, there is as part of rules, there is an interim duty that generally gets levied, and which has been determined at 32.2%. So that's something that got applied from 1st of May. And the rest of the process we expect by July or August to be completed, and we'll have the final outcome. We are engaging with all the regulatory bodies to make sure that our the right information is put forward and to defend ourselves in the best way possible. But in the interim, there will be an interruption in our supply to those customers on account of this large levy. We would imagine that we will not have sales for them for at least 6 more months, and maybe more depending on how situation evolves. So that's going to be a tonnage that will be impacted on account of that action there. I think from a capex standpoint, as you all know, we are in the midst of commissioning our mill lining plant that was to be commissioned early this year. The equipment is there, but it requires a lot of that equipment comes from Europe, and there are severe constraints for engineers to come down and travel. So what was to be March or April this year, then June this year, I think is now moving to November or December of this year, and that's also subject to these engineers being able to come and install and commission that equipment. So as we speak, mill lining plant commissioning dates been pushed to latter part of this year, and so we spent about 118 crores on capex for this year, which includes spend on the mill lining plant. For next year, we expect to do about 200 crores, of which 80 crores would be balance spend for the mill lining plant. We are in the midst of setting up additional 5.4 megawatts of wind power, and we paid 6 crores this year. A balance 30 comes next year. So that's 110, and then there's another 90 crores where we need other supporting infrastructure for our plants, some amount of land and general capex. So total 200 crores is our capex estimate for next year. The board also announced dividend for this year at 450% on par value, or 9 rupees per share, and that will entail a total outflow of 84 crores. So we're happy to report that we continue to pay dividends and close out at total payout at 84 crores. We added 500 crores plus of cash this year. Our net cash stands at 2,040 crores,
Yeah.
which is up from 1400 crores, 1460 crores end of March last year. So, and large part of that reflects the operating cash flow, which has been converted into cash, and some amount of working capital improvement. So, net cash after, debt of about 180 crores is at 2000 crores. I think that sums up our major agenda points, in the housekeeping for numbers. I'll have Sanjay Bhai, just again explain some of these things in his own words, and we can then move on to Q&A. Thank you so much.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Kunal. Happy to report that, the company could manage to reach almost the same level of performance as we did in 1920. That's gratifying. At the same time, Kunal has mentioned some of the red flags which we currently are witnessing. One very important part, I think what we had extensively discussed in the board today, mercifully the COVID-19 pandemic second wave seems to be receding quite fast in India, hopefully, and therefore it gives us hope that by end of June, maybe beginning of July, the next quarter, if things start moving again, then the key focus, the three pillars of growth on which the company is focused, can be again, pushed with full vigor. From a medium to long term perspective, the prospects are extremely encouraging. The initial results that we are getting from the new initiatives are very, very encouraging. It is just unfortunately a pause, which, as Kunal explained, due to the problems associated with travel and the fact that 90% of the developmental work does happen at the mine site itself. That is a big impediment which is coming in our way, but we are very hopeful that from next quarter onwards things should start moving. Of course, Canada he has discussed. It's a bit early for us to see how much will be the impact, but at least for 1 or 2 quarters the sales may be impacted. But as we have mentioned in the past, we as a company, Canada has been given just the appropriate attention that is required, with lot of focus on multiple avenues of new development, either on the DP basis or on the mill liner basis or on the pure chrome advantage basis, qua which multiple mines all over the world are currently under development. Everywhere things are encouraging. So I think this year, hopefully, we will not be able to tell you at this point in time what could be the targeted sales performance of this quarter or next quarter, but we know for sure that on a long-term, medium to long-term basis, there is enough food on the plate to keep on growing steadily year after year from next year onwards. I think with this, I will request the moderator to throw the house open for Q&A.
Thank you very much, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, we will now begin the question and answer session. Anyone who wishes to ask a question may please press star, then 1 on their touchtone telephone. If you wish to remove yourself from the question queue, you may press star, then 2. Participants are requested to use handsets while asking a question. Anyone who wishes to ask questions, please press star, then 1. The first question is from the line of Ravi Swaminathan from Spark Capital. Please go ahead.
Good afternoon, Kunal sir and Sanjay sir. My first question is with respect to the fact that commodities have been on a significant rising trend. So are you seeing mines, etc., increasing their outputs, because of which we are seeing increased volumes and new mines getting opened, etc.? So if you can throw some light on.
Yeah, sure. So clearly there is a uptick in, there is a supply-demand mismatch. So mines that are efficient, who can scale up production, are clearly, doing that. So I think you are right on that account, that there may be, but where there is, possibility to increase utilization, right? So that is one. I think that wherever that's possible, they are doing that. But more importantly, we're seeing gold and copper guys talk about new expansion, right? So copper looks to be in a structural bull run. In our understanding, just because of the underlying demand that's there from electronics and electronic vehicles and all of that, and the fact that there has not been capex, in the mining space in last 10 years or last 7, 8, 10, 9 years. So we are seeing lot of people make, conversations around adding capacity, at least for gold and copper. And likewise for iron, at the price that it's trading, there is significant interest in that sense. But again, that depends on whether the price increase is structural, is it momentary, will it correct? So, that depends on a lot of things. Gold and copper, clearly, gold just because it's the only proxy to the weakening or the printing that the world is doing, and which is why it will continue to be a safe haven asset. So that and copper clearly look to be something that is structural and will continue, in a bullish terms, not necessarily the prices that it is in, just the demand that come from it. We don't understand iron ore and where that will go.
But again, just to add, Ravi, just to make it very clear that our focus still for the growth is not dependent on the capex cycles of mines, but rather the huge room that we have in terms of the conversion opportunity, and we remain focused on that. So notwithstanding whether the cycle is boom or maybe it's on the downside, we should continue our journey relentlessly. That's what our focus remains.
And
the cycles.
And given the fact that prices are, say, on the uptake and the utilization of across mines can keep going up, so will it make it easier for us to penetrate into new gold and copper customers? So basically, will customers be open to experiment with your new products or increase wallet share to you?
We wish we had the answer for it. I think we've explained our rationale why we believe our product, or chrome grinding media, has fair chances of being the media of choice, and more plants, more mines coming up or not will not change that fundamental proposition.
Got it, sir. And do we stick to that 30,000 tons of incremental volume every year, or can it go up because of this?
I think for this year we are, not giving out a guidance on this year simply because, the Canada situation is evolving. We'll have to wait and watch with what happens with that tonnage.
And the COVID.
And the COVID, and the fact that we can't, there will be ups and downs. There will be mines that get shut for other reasons, right? Or, some other considerations where they produce less. So we have to keep all of that in mind. And which is where I think we will hold on to giving a guidance for another quarter, maybe two, get a fair sense on what's happening. And so I think what happens in 3 or 6 months is not something that's in our hands. But fundamentally, growing between 20 and 40,000 tons, given everything else that we're doing, is a fair expectation, right? We've always talked about how it takes time. Sometimes you will have few mines convert at the same time. Sometimes the same guy will take longer than we expect. But, given where we are with the development, the initiatives that we are having in terms of benefits that chrome has versus, forge, plus the mill lining, the whole strategy, tactic around the mill lining combination, I think we are reasonably optimistic about adding, 20,000-30,000 tons each year.
Yeah.
Got it. And what kind of volumes we were doing before this announcement?
24,000 tons per annum.
24,000 tons per year.
24,000 tons per annum. Got it, sir. And this input cost increase which has happened, is it safe to assume we would be able to pass it on over a 2 to 3 quarter, that is by FY22 itself?
Pass it on. Again, it's an effort. Raw material is generally a pass-through. I don't think, we've encountered in last few cycles that we've seen, or at least I've seen. Generally it's a fair pass-through. 2 quarters becomes 3, there is some residual in the 4th quarter. That's what we'll see. We'll make our attempt to be as quick about it as possible.
Got it, sir. And mill liners, so basically, will the volume start kicking in from FY23? Is it safe to assume?
Yes.
Got it, sir. And finally,
November, it will be too close a call to, because we're still assuming things open up, engineers come, it gets commissioned. We'll just have to, let COVID play out and do what is, or guide what is in our hands, which is why I think all tonnage we should expect from the new plant next year.
Got it. And realizations would be like 150 rupees to the kg vis-a-vis 100 rupees company average in mill liners.
Or higher, yes.
Or higher. Okay, sir. And what kind of growth visibility is there in the non-mining volume? So basically, after a very long period of time, we are bullish on domestic cement, etc.
No, that was a catch-up, Ravi. I don't think we're bullish about it. It's just that, there was a catch-up. There was a pent-up that happened. All of a sudden, demand kicked in and the material got, supplied. It's still flat. I don't think we're looking at not any material increase, right? We did 89,000 tons, became 85 this year. It may become 90 or it may become 82. I mean, virtually not something that's material. 85 will never become 120,000 tons, for example.
Got it, sir. Thanks a lot.
Okay.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Ashutosh Tiwari from Equirus. Please go ahead.
Yeah, Kunal and Sanjay, congrats on the good volume performance. Despite COVID, in fact, we almost flat for this we did. So firstly, on this Canada volumes, like you said, 24,000 tons on an annual basis, these are only grinding media that is supplied to Canada. There is no liner per se over there.
A small quantity, not material.
So that would mean that the realization on an average would be lower than the company average in Canada volumes.
Yes.
So the impact on revenue will be lesser than the volume impact. Okay. Yeah. Secondly,
I'll trust you to do the math.
Sorry?
Yeah, I'll trust you to do the math on it. Yes.
Yeah. Secondly, was there any Canada volume in the last quarter as well, Q4?
Yes.
Okay.
In the reporting quarter, yes.
Okay. And like I said, obviously 20 to 30,000 volume that we plan to add every year. I mean, obviously this year the impact was because of Canada and all. But despite the COVID impact in terms of travel and all, will you really add any volumes for new mines in this year as well? Like 22, I'm saying.
Yeah. So we keep making efforts, right? But it's very difficult. Some may close. Work that we have done, maybe some trials have been done, maybe we are supplying 1 million, the other can be added. Absolutely. And we are still hopeful that things open up maybe by August, September, where the last ditch efforts are pending. So we are not shutting our sales that no growth possible this year. It's just difficult to guide, till things really start,
So hypothetically, even if the Canada goes to zero this year, then also mining volume will not impact you to the extent of Canada volumes.
We'll share a better visibility on that, end of first quarter or the second at best.
Okay.
Little early to talk about it. I think we are doing enough to make good of that volume, but I think just allow us a quarter or two, before we can guide on what this year looks like.
Obviously, the efforts will be in that direction, but give us one more quarter.
No, I got it. Okay. And on this mill liner capex and probably commissioning now expected by the second half. So is that deferment because of this travel restriction are impacting our sales of that?
Yes. Because a lot of our equipment is imported, European technology. We can't. There's got a lot of electronics, a lot of automation in it. I mean, that needs their engineers. If we do here we try doing it here and it gets something is a problem, we risk warranty and other issues. So we need them to come down and install and commission and do the trial production, and all that cannot happen till they are comfortable visiting India.
All of that was planned in first quarter. It's not happening.
And their countries have put travel restriction on India now. I mean, so to that extent, that doesn't open up.
We hope they come in Q2, then we can start in Q3. Let us see. Let us hope things normalize much quicker.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, whether India, they allow travel in August, which means they get the visa, come down in September, 2 months of commission. So we think it's November now, subject to them being available to travel. So next quarter, maybe when we do the June quarter in July, we'll have a little more insight into what's happening with that.
And along with you mentioned about this RM impact on margin in the quarter, was freight also a sizable area which impacted our margin?
Say again, what?
Ocean freight cost.
So ocean freight was an increase, but we also had long-term contracts, so for some part of the quarter. So a lot of that cost will now, start rolling in. But that's also, a price pass-through, cost pass-through. So our attempt will be to, look at pass-through for that line item as well.
Okay. So I think from So gradually from Q1, you meant to say that your realizations also will start going up because it's pass-through of this commodity as well as this red cost.
Yes.
And lastly, on this Canada, like you said that over next 6 months, probably supplies will not happen to those customers. So can this... Hello?
Yes, please go ahead. I can hear you.
So can this switch between, like say, like AE supplier, some other supplier so quickly?
No.
We have a competitor who can supply, no? So
okay, so
same
like in a product.
High chrome option is always there.
Okay.
No, but generally that's not something we worry about once the supplies begin, you see?
Because we shifted.
See,
customers may not prefer doing that, but of course if we cannot supply or there's a significant, duty or other such thing that happens, obviously, assumptions change, right? Things.
No, but
I
historically doesn't happen often. No.
Yeah, that I understand. I think also in like in Canada, I think over last 4-5 years we have gained a lot of market share, and that market share shifted from Megadox only. So I guess that product must be better than them. So okay, all the best for this.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Ranjit Sivaram from ICICI Securities.
Yeah. Hi, sir. Just want.
Hello.
Mr. Sivaram, we can't hear you.
Ranjit, your voice.
Ranjit, we lost you. Can you repeat your question, please?
Mr. Sivaram, please unmute the line from your side. We can't hear you. We've lost the line from Mr. Sivaram. The next question from the line of Sandeep Tulsian from JM Financial.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good evening, Kunal Bhai and Sanjay Bhai.
Good evening.
My first question is pertaining to if I were to make a statement that there were no new client conversions in the whole of FY21 and the entire volumes came in from existing set of clients only. Would that be the correct understanding?
Not really. I mean, there will be a few clients that we would have added. I mean, not material, but that's an exercise that will always happen,
Okay.
Yeah. But where are you coming with that?
So his question, yeah.
Want to just understand, so without any conversions, were volumes in sync with what we were able to do, and just trying to get a sense where we are headed towards probably in FY22, barring the disruption in the Canada volumes, where can we go towards is what I'm just trying to understand.
Yeah. So there were customers that we added, but nothing that was material, saying 20,000 tons or, of that nature. But there will be smaller mines that we keep, developing, those things that will continue. But a large part would have come from existing customers.
Okay. So with mine utilization going higher and the consumable demand increasing accordingly, barring this Canada disruption of say 8 to 9% of sales, we should be looking at a growth in the base business in FY22, correct?
We will, like we said, we will guide in a quarter or two. I think we are still doing our work. There are too many variables for us to say one way or the other.
Okay, fine, fair enough. And so, is it possible to get a breakup of domestic and export sales for the year?
In terms of revenue.
In terms of revenue, yes.
I don't have it on me, but I'll get you that figure. I'll speak about it, in a little bit.
Okay. And lastly, just one thing on the commodity prices. I think although ferrochrome prices had peaked in say February and March period, they have cooled off substantially over the last say 1.5 months. So just want to understand what can be the tentative price hikes that can be rolled out in the coming quarters to offset this softened commodity prices.
Most raw material increase will be passed through. It's very volatile. So, I mean, what was there 1 month back, it's again started inching up. So, I mean, the volatility is there, right? So, at a point in time, every quarter, there is a price variation formula. It will be adjusted according to the formula. Whenever you're taking new orders, it will reflect the new cost, right? But if it's a previous quarter's average we're taking in this quarter and the supply will happen in the quarter after next, then it's representing pricing that is 4.5 months ago, right? So that is why it takes 3 quarters for us to really flush out and reflect the pricing that we have today. And then there is a volatility delta that kicks in. So broadly, we will have a pass-through whatever that cost is with a lag effect.
Okay. Got it. Understood. That's it from my side. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Surajit Jain from ASK Investment Managers. Please go ahead.
Hi, Kunal and Sanjay bhai. Decent performance in the light of difficulties. Since we've had this experience in Brazil, and now we are facing this in Canada, and the commentary that every year we try to add something like 25,000-30,000 tons. All of these things put together, that is some volume lost in Canada, some volume you might gain. Would it be safe to say that FY22 you can close on flat and or slight growth in volume without looking at a guidance? I mean, that would be the endeavor.
From a directional point of view, obviously, Surjit, that would be the efforts. Okay. Now, the problem is we exactly do not know, since Canada, the final verdict will come somewhere in July, I think, July or August. The final rates and how the customers are going to react. So let us take a worst case scenario that for the whole year we lose the volume completely. Even then, the endeavor would be to ensure that at least we are flat. But as we say, our people, various locations, so in cement we are working in 125 countries, in mines we are working in over 30-35 countries, several mining locations, more than 150-200 mining locations. All of our teams all across the world, 70-80 people, are currently in the process of ensuring that whatever are the given constraints, what best we can do and how much we should target, obviously with an effort to somehow push the growth. And therefore, just to sound a little positive, we are not pessimistic and we are not saying that we will. So we are not working for a negative growth, but we are trying to see what best we can do and how much we can commit. Therefore, we have sought some more time, maybe a quarter, at least a quarter more, where we can get a little better picture. Very honestly, before 15 days, it was very gloomy. But today we feel much better. In last 15 days, India seems to have started faring very well. Similarly, many countries have also started opening. Probably the travel restrictions to India should be removed, and from India also should be removed, hopefully by July. So, there are many variables which are beyond us as we speak this point in time. But our endeavor is that on a normal year, as we had replied to one of the previous questions, with these three major focus areas, there is nothing that can stop us from growing and having an incremental volume of 25, 30, 40,000 tons year over year hopefully from next year. Let us wait for a while for this year. We are trying our level best. That's all I can say.
Sure, understood. In Brazil, it has been now 2 years. What is the progress made there? Because if some of that comes back, then clearly you'll end up this year in a much better fashion.
So we had some volume this quarter. It's just a continuous effort. I know you've been keen and optimist about it. This year we are making our efforts. I mean, we'll have hopefully better news to report on it. But we did have some quantity in the fourth quarter that we just reported.
Got that. And coming back to Canada, like it happened in Brazil, eventually the duty might settle at a low teen type, and we'll come to know about it later. But if that happens, then the loss of volumes will not be to the entire extent that you have in Canada. Is that the correct understanding of the situation?
If it will be recouped by what you said. Sorry, we missed you in the first part.
So in Brazil, the initial duty was 30% plus. The final duty was 11%, 12%.
Correct.
And a similar experience might, pan out in Canada. If it happens in terms of duty the way it has happened in Brazil, then is it safe to assume that the volumes will be retained in Canada?
We're too early to say, Sujit bhai. It is that's too many questions rolled into one. We wish singularly we are struggling for each answer. Today our focus is only on one aspect, is to defend ourselves. Okay. I mean, it is presumptuous to say there will be a duty, there will not be a duty. I don't think this is connected at all with the Brazil case, right? The facts are very different. Data is very different. The regime is very different. So I think at this time, all we are saying is we are geared towards making sure we present the right data and we hope that, justice prevails or, the right outcomes happen.
So Kunal, my question is straight, is if the duty settles to a, 11-12% kind of a duty, then do the customer leave the material from us?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's not possible. We cannot have a presumptuous conversation with the customer, right? It's not, we don't know whether it'll be 10, it'll be 0, or it'll be 20. We don't know that today. There is no conversation today that's possible with that, assumption on what that duty will be. It is uncharted for us. We'll just have to bite the bullet one day at a time, cross the bridge as it comes. I understand you would like to have some visibility about it, but unfortunately, if we start thinking that way, it will keep affecting what we are in the process of, right? So our current objective is only to defend well and see what happens with that, right? We'll cross the bridge once we know what that outcome of that is, and we'll create strategy that aligns with it thereafter.
Sure. And in terms of the gross margin, as you've explained, which QOQ has, fallen from 66% to about 63%. But like you said, this is a pass-through. So this is safe to assume that eventually we get back to the gross margin.
That's what this is the fourth or the fifth cycle I have seen over the last 15, 17 years. So, that is generally because raw material is expected to be a pass-through. No customer expects a vendor to eat a raw material inflation, right? So
in our kind of
in generally a metal type business, so that's the current expectation that over a few quarters, most of this price increase will be passed through.
Which means that the OPM of 21-22% are eventually achievable, doable.
Of course, yes.
Great. Thank you so much and all the best.
Subject to other variables.
No disclaimer. No disclaimers. Go ahead. No problem.
So we have a different anyways. Somebody asked us about domestic and export. The domestic sales were 572 crores. Export was, or sales outside India was 2,247 crores. So and thank you, Sujit Bhai. Yeah.
Thank you. We take the next question from the line of Raja Kumar V, an individual investor. Please go ahead.
Yeah, good evening, sir. Thanks for the opportunity.
Good evening.
Just two questions. Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Sir, the first question is, I look at your, the production for Q4, it's about 62,000 tons.
Right.
So I just wanted to know, is it something because of the impending Canada action you have deliberately reduced your production because, in other words, I want to know whether this will be your expected sales for your Q1 of upcoming year?
So there is a small part of that, but not, we would have sold if 24,000 tons, Canada would be 2,000 tons a month, right? That the difference is more than that. So maybe a month or so there could be an impact on that, but the rest is just stock availability that we had that we built for this quarter. So nothing per se to read into it. We just built into stock in December with anticipated orders and deliveries in this quarter. Also, because of the shipping, the shipping times going up, container availability being a concern, we are shipping ahead of time. So, you would see some amount of, orders that we shipped, as a fallout of last quarter, where we produced last quarter so that we can ship it out as early as possible this quarter. So you'll have to look at that number on an annual basis, versus just one versus the other quarter.
Okay. Got it, sir. So the second question is, I see that, there's a lot of talk on, ban on conventional power plants coming up. So given that scenario, I just want to know whether what would be the impact for AIA because we are...
As you know, non-mining volume, we don't expect that to grow. So, we expect that to be a flat amount. New plants don't come with, in coal is okay for us. Anyways, we don't expect that market to grow. Existing plants continue the way they are.
So these existing volumes will not be impacted because it's a continuous replacement demand.
Okay. Got it, sir. So last question, you have a small subsidiary called Welcast Steel. I saw that in September you made a provision to impair, you took a decision to kind of discontinue. And again in December, we took a decision to restart. So, but I saw the current quarter results, they have shown. So just wanted to know what is the management, why you took a different turn, and again, the results are not showing up in a positive way?
I don't think there is much to read into. I mean, that's a plant, that's a capacity that's part of the group. At the time when COVID had hit, surplus capacity was there, is that, that's part of a normal evaluation of available capacity, and then we had a revisit on where we stood on that, and it continues. We don't have enough orders. Our capacity is much larger than our current, our utilization is at, lower level right now. We would have done easily 300 to 320,000 tons this year had things been normal, right? So we have surplus capacities. Some part of financials that you talked about are a result of that.
Okay, but the current understanding is you intend to continue that subsidy, right?
Yes.
Okay, sir. Thanks a lot, sir. Thanks for answering the question.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Mitesh Malik from Vallum Capital. Please go ahead.
Yes, good evening, Kunal and Sanjay sir.
Yeah.
Yes. Hi.
So my question was on new customer acquisition. So have you seen a delay on that front given the nature of customer conversion that is there in your business? What would have probably what you could have targeted in, say, 2021 and flow through in 23, 24 in terms of sales, so that could have been pushed out a little bit into the future?
Yes, Mitesh. Unfortunately, there is a very considerable delay that we are seeing for the very simple reason that our process is something which cannot be done, or which can be done in a very limited manner through video conferencing and through Zoom.
Hello. Hello. Hello.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for patiently waiting. The line for the management is reconnected. So you may go ahead. We still have Mitesh Malik on the line.
Yeah, Mitesh. So sorry about this disruption. So as I was explaining, our kind of business warrants a continuous interaction with the customers, physical presence of our people going there into the mine site, taking samples, having discussions, coming back, suggesting a solution, again doing trials, again having feedback, etc. Now this is not possible because of the COVID restrictions on travel. So last year, somewhere in the month of March, this process practically came to a grinding halt. We thought that from November, December, things started looking up. From January, again, it started a little bit. Unfortunately, again in January, February, we saw second wave in Europe, America, and many other parts of the world where mines are located. And therefore, that was disrupted. In the month of April, May, we saw India coming into difficulties. So practically last whole year and this first quarter is gone. Nevertheless, whatever little we could do, some small last mile conversions we did try to finish. I think hopefully by July, August, things should reconnect and we should be able to restart our travel and interaction, and hopefully that process will be on. Fundamentally, the opportunity remains the same. There is absolutely no customer who has said and come to us and said that now they are not interested, etc. So let's hope things come to a normalcy from next quarter. That is what we believe.
Right. Thank you, sir, so much for the detailed update. Just another question on the Canada import duty. Is there any threat of it being retrospectively applicable?
Okay. Not really. No. There is it's unlikely that it's applied retrospectively.
Okay. That's it from my side, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Bhavin Vitlani from SBI Mutual Fund. Please go ahead.
Thank you for the opportunity. Increasingly, we are seeing miners talk about ESG emphasis. So, in that tone, how are we giving us the solution to our customers to improve their ESG score?
Very material, right? Whether that converts into a purchase decision, we'll have to see. But, right from saving, the biggest ESG consequence is our ability to, save consumption of reagents. That's absolutely the most toxic material that gets used, including sometimes cyanide, right? So, and that's required to just run the process. And use of chrome, one can reduce consumption of reagents, number one. Number two is if your recovery goes up, which means you're grinding less for that same amount of metal, right? We can save power for when we are using these mill linings. So all of these things each of these action has an ESG consequence for the miner, So that is absolutely of interest. I think that adoption interest is largely driven by stakeholders, making miners accountable, getting them to look at it from this standpoint. I think a lot of mining companies are taking those initiatives, to reduce their, environmental footprint. And I think we'll be right up there in terms of our ability to help in each of those regards.
Sure, that's useful. And secondly, in terms of the non-mining volumes, what is the share of cement in that, and what is our market share in the cement?
It's largely cement. Non-mining is largely cement. 90% of that would be, or 80% of that would be cement. And you also have the utility, which is predominantly in India. So that's one. Cement, I think we expect, the global market's been flat. And in the organized side, there are two players, one is our competition and other is us. So, two players that have a reasonable market share, in the organized sector outside of China. You've got players in China that, occupy that space in China. So outside of China, there are two players, and then you've got these smaller manufacturers who are present in, local regions. But largely, it's a status quo in terms of, market share. I don't think we can go higher than our current volume. There's an equilibrium in terms of, market share for each producer today.
Sure. Is it fair to say 50% share ex of China?
I mean, we don't know, what our competition would be doing. So we would rather not, have that number, calculated, but it will not be 15 or 20%. It's a reasonable market share that we have.
30-35.
Sure. Just lastly, you mentioned that there will be a pass-through that we have seen historically also. Now, does that imply that our percentage margins come down because the customer gives us the input cost inflation, but not the margins on that?
Possibly, yes. Which is why, we are not, there is a price margin guidance that we have of 20 to 22%. We've done more than that, but, there are several variables that come in play, and, a lot of these cross-currency, shipping, raw material, the pass-through. There's a lot of things that come into play into margin. So all things being equal, yes, theoretically what you're saying is correct, but other things also give as things move, right? So, but as of now, the focus is on making sure that we pass through the raw material. That itself is a large endeavor. Margins, will follow suit, but again, that's not a absolute number that we're guiding on.
Just one last point from my side. Are we seeing that incrementally the clients are talking about new mines opening or greenfield? You did speak about in the beginning of the call, but are you seeing any customers which are there?
Yeah, so copper and gold, we are hearing, miners talk about new capacity, yes.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Thank you so much. These are my questions.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Pritesh Chheda from Lucky Investments. Please go ahead.
Yeah, sir. I have one question. When we talk about client and newer mines or in terms of prospects, these are basically existing mines where the commercial production exists, right? That's how it is.
Yes.
Okay. And when we are talking about our incrementally, we are seeing investments emerging in gold and copper. And last full decade, there haven't been any investments in mine. Is it fair to assume that some of these investments for business to flow to us will at least be 2-3 years away because they have to go?
So first and foremost, let me again reiterate at the cost of a bit of a repetition that when we talk of an opportunity in mining of about 2.5 million tons per year, that is the pure replacement demand that we are talking, that is coming or emanating out of the current mining which is happening. Then we say that 15-20% of that is converted into high chrome, which means about 80% of their demand is still yet to be converted, and this is the opportunity on which we are working. So for next, say, 5 years, 10 years, we don't expect. So for this, next 5 or 10 years, sorry, they just reconnected back to the original line, so there was a disruption. So at least for next 5-10 years, we don't worry whether technically or theoretically the mine new capex cycle grows or not, because our focus is on converting this existing replacement demand into a high chrome use, a major part of it. We can't convert the full part, but we want to convert a significant part so that we become a dominant player. Having said that, in the previous conversation, whenever we talked of the new mining cycle, the new capex cycle, it will eventually pan out into theoretically a increased demand for replacement. But as we said, since the focus or the endeavor is not linked to the new capex cycle of the mines, it doesn't matter whether that capex cycle happens or does not happen, at least in near term. This is how we look at it.
Okay. And associated question with this, is it a case where in the existing opportunity or in the existing mines, as the mines become older, the need for slightly higher quality grinding media increases, or where the mines are where the cost of production is higher, the need for high quality grinding media increases? Is there a correlation by any chance in that form?
A very pertinent question, I must say, because you see our whole focus, if you see the solution strength that we have, capability that we have developed, a mine operates under various conditions, and as the mine grows older, it will have to go deeper, and therefore the abrasivity and the other characteristics of ore becomes more and more difficult to grind, and that is where high chrome becomes an important substitute, because it enables the same mine to improve the throughput and the quality of our grinding without incurring significant additional capex to sustain or maintain the same level of output. So this is one of the very important attributes on which our mill liner business is focused on, to improve the throughput, to reduce the cost, and not to make that mine incur heavy capex in terms of grinding equipment, etc., for maintaining the output. So this is one major advantage that we, as a part of one of our solutions, we do offer. And yes, you are right. In a way, yes, quality of grinding, improvement in throughputs, improvement in grinding efficiencies is a very important value add that we profess or we endeavor to bring on table.
Okay. And lastly, on the mill lining side, considering the realization being 50% higher than the grinding media, high chrome, will the margins also have to be higher in mill lining?
See, theoretically yes, but we always talk of a weighted average sustainable margin at the pure operating level of 20 to 23%, excluding other income, other non-operating income, etc., that you normally, as the investor fraternity or the analyst, they take it out. So the idea is to ensure that this is the minimum operating level margin with which we can, confidently talk about. And but it's a function of product mix, multiple factors, raw material going up in one quarter, our ability to pass it through in the second quarter, product mix improving. There are multiple factors, but a long-term sustainable, sure 100% pure operating EBITDA margin of 22-23% is something that we want to talk about.
Thank you very much and all the best.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Anirudh Shetty from Solidarity Investment Managers. Please go ahead.
Hi, thanks for taking my question. My first question is around, this import duties that we have seen from Brazil and now Canada. So just wanted to understand the trend over here. Are you guys seeing an increasingly protectionist trend happening in this industry? And if yes, so what are the implications for AIA?
Not really. First of all, our product is not like steel or a commodity, in that sense where it's mass produced, you've got plenty players, right? The whole thesis for a product is to add value, and that some part of that value that we bring is reflected in our margins, right? So the idea is not to be, having to sell at a price, where some of these actions, become part of the business. Of course, it has to be market linked. There is competition. There are other factors that come into play. But we don't think there is a protectionist trend. I think this is just a tactic that companies would use as markets evolve. I don't think this is. We don't believe that this is a trend in that sense.
My next question is on the overall industry. If it's 2.5 million tons, what would the broad split be between iron, copper, gold, and I think everything else?
I think iron would be about 40% of that, of the mix, and then followed by gold and copper would be the second and the third largest.
Right. And, a point on that opportunity just through conversion of existing forged media is well taken. But, in a situation where, commodity prices go in that structural bull run, And of course, new mines come up, whenever they do. Can one make a case for an ancillary like AIA to benefit not only from volume growth but also increasing margins, because then the customer allows you to make a higher profitability because their prices for them have gone up?
Not really. I don't think there is any such cause effect connection. Our margins are linked to the value we add to the customer and the efforts that we make. Generally it's not linked to how much money your customer is making. Because by extension, when they're not making money, we should not be making money, right? I think that's not connected. Our job is to make sure that we add value, we design solutions, we engineer, we engage, and demonstrate value that we bring and partner with the customer in making sure we are fairly compensated for it. So, no, that's independent of whether they're doing well or not.
Got it. And just one final question. For our existing grinding media and our mill liner business that's coming, what would the peak utilization would be possibly?
For our plants?
Yeah.
I think so. We should be able to go almost till 90%, right? But we have maintenance downtimes and other things where that depends on what cycle it is in that year. But we can go up to 100%.
Okay. And this is true for both grinding media as well as mill liners.
Correct. So 90%, 100%. I mean, melting capacity is there. That depends on 80 to 90% is something that is absolutely possible to achieve.
Got it. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Karanveer Singh, an individual investor. Please go ahead. Karanveer Singh, your line is unmuted. Please go ahead with the question. Yes, go ahead.
Hello.
Yes, hi.
Yeah, this is Charanjit here from DSP. Hello, sir.
Hello, Charanjit. How are you? Yes.
Good, sir. Good. Sir, first question is on this, the entire travel restrictions which are there. So just want to understand, once the travel restrictions open up, generally will it take, a quarter or two for these, volume conversions to start happening in terms of, process which is involved. And on an annual basis, if you look at historically, what would have been our volume which would have come from the new customers? That's my first question.
So I think generally most of our growth coming from new customers, So we have existing customers, where there is a growth potential, but generally, that depends on what that customer's philosophy. Do they want to buy 100% from one supplier? Do they want to split into half, one plant versus another plant? So I don't think that we can generalize that, but generally most of our growth come from, new customers.
Okay. So, and in terms of this conversion, once the travel restrictions open up, will it take, a quarter or more than that for these, the new volumes to start coming in? What could have been
I think once travel restrictions lift, we get back to normal pre-COVID engagement with the customer, and thereon starts our activity, right? We start our activity, start engaging. When do orders convert out of that? Now that's a cycle itself, right? And that some work we've done, some is nearing closure, some requires trials, so that's in different stages. Which is where we are saying we'll take a quarter or two and come back with a plan saying here's our worldview on where tonnages should be, in 12 months from now and then 24 months from now. So allow us a quarter or two to, get a firm handle on that.
Okay. And so in terms of the liners, overall the conversion cycle for any new customer will be shorter versus the grinding media?
For liners, there is much more, the results are much more tangible because we're looking at improvement in throughput, we're looking at reduction in power cost, obviously reduction in wear part cost. So it's not faster, it's a little more tangible and also, quantifiable. So yes, we hope that the conversion there is faster, and that feeds into our whole grinding media strategy as well, right? So mill lining is part of that larger wear part strategy that we have.
Okay. And so lastly on copper and gold, generally, how are the realizations versus, iron ore? And in terms of our success factor for conversion in copper and gold, is it much better than iron ore?
No, not really. It's just that, for gold and copper, there is a recovery angle to it. There's a reagent angle to it. It's not just cost of grinding media, right? There's recovery, there's reagent consumption, and that put together also offers, there's an additional value that the customer gets on migrating from forged to chrome, and which is where we believe that that's an easier, lower hanging fruit as opposed to iron ore. But a lot of our early breakthroughs were with iron ore, so I don't think it's one versus the other. It's just that we are a little more bullish about gold and copper. Also, the metals have a bullish undertone, with gold being a safe haven asset, and copper just having structural looks to be having a structural underlying demand. So all put together, we are just more excited about it. Otherwise, our value add and our proposition is there for both. Mill linings brings iron ore back into play, because then we're looking at power cost, reduction in power cost, increase in throughput. You can produce more steel with the same amount of grinding, installation. So these are things that we are excited about all three. But gold and copper is just something that we because of this extra value add allows us a little more leeway when we discuss with customers.
Okay. Thanks, Kunal bhai, Sanjay bhai, for taking my questions.
Thank you, Charanjit.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Ranjit Sivaram from ICICI. Please go ahead.
Hello, sir. Am I audible? Sorry, I got disconnected last time.
Yes. Hello. We can hear you now.
Yeah, sir, I just wanted to check whether in this dispute or in this with the authorities of Canada, are we the only party which is impacted, or you see other manufacturers like us also impacted, so that we have more, we are a group of people who are trying to restrict, or is it?
As we understand, we are the only suppliers to Canada for grinding media. So the duty will be applicable to producers in India, but us being the largest producer in India, will be the ones will be really affected.
So is the import from India only impacted? That means others have manufacturing bases over there.
No, the action is against producers in India.
Okay. And what is the kind of contingency that we will be planning? Like, if for example we won't be able to win over the trust from those authorities, what is the contingency that we have? Because we will be losing substantial amount of volume.
That's what we had explained to before on this call today, that today the focus is on defending this action. I think it's premature to start thinking and engaging with the customer with a preconceived outcome in mind, right? So we've got 3 months, still to go in this effort, and that's what we're focused on. We'll see what happens with this. We'll see what the outcome is, and then come back with mitigation plan depending on what that outcome is.
And do you fear any other geography like Brazil? We have been through this cycle, Canada now, and do you see any further issues in other geographies which can probably come out, or can we just premeditate that?
It's difficult to generalize like that. It's difficult to generalize like that.
Okay. So this lastly on this mill liner, so we expect sales from mill liner probably from FY23 onwards, because yes. FY22 will be mostly regarding the commissioning of the factory. So
exactly. 23 is when we expect volumes from the plant. Yes, that's the current plan.
Okay, and the grinding media, we wait for some more clarity regarding the overall volume ramp up, and then we will rework on our new plan, so to add that additional 50,000 tons per annum.
Exactly.
So then why don't we increase it?
We have surplus capacity, so we don't have to rush into adding new capacity till we have clarity on utilization for the same.
So then why don't we increase our dividend? Because we are paying less, if I look at lesser dividend, and we have 2,000 crores of net cash. So is there anything that is, why this lower dividend payout?
Okay, very, very relevant question. I agree with you that we have a very comfortable cash position. We had again extensively discussed this today in the board. So what the board felt and what the management felt actually, that given the current volatility, given the fact that there are many things which are still not under our control, let us at this point in time declare this, so to say, the kind of a minimum dividend that we want to, as the company wants to give. And after 2 quarters, the situation will be again reviewed. And if necessary, a fresh call will be again taken in one or the other form. So this is just a bit of a conservative approach with which the company is currently viewing the situation. And as things become normal, we will once again surely look at it and see what are the other ways in which the payout can be enhanced.
Okay, sir. That's from my side. Thanks and all the best. We'll probably wait for the next quarter on an update.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Anupam Gupta from IIFL. Please go ahead.
Good evening, Kunal and Sanjay bhai. If I understand right, you said you had resumed some volumes to Brazil in the fourth quarter and also in first quarter. Is that right?
In the fourth reporting quarter, yes.
Okay. So what I want to understand that is basically, is that also the reason of, so did that have an impact on margins in the fourth quarter apart from the raw material impact which you saw?
Not really. No, I don't think so. Out of 80,000 tons, we can't be discussing 4,000 tons. This is just in response to the question that Sujit had asked on what's happening with Brazil. I don't think we have anything else to report on it at this time.
Okay, understand. And just a clarification, I was not able to hear your reply on Charanjit's question of after opening up, how soon can the volumes come back? Because what we have seen over the last 1 year is that the overall cycle of marketing has gotten disrupted. So now that you will restart, let's say a couple of months down the line, will it result in meaningful incremental volume this year, or will that still be let's say 6-7 month process of conversion?
Which is where we are saying that we'll give a guidance on that in a quarter or two. Once we get a better handle on what's happening, where the customer stands. We are unfortunately not in a position to answer that today. We are hoping we'll have some better answers in a quarter or two in terms of guidance for the year ahead. How are these mines opening up? Are they actually opening up? What is happening with vaccination? There are questions that we still have. It will be presumptuous right now or premature to start discussing what happens. So what's that post-COVID markets opening? What formats? When will they be ready to welcome and accept us at the plant? We just want to wait and watch for next 2 quarters on how all of that pans out. Once it's ready, we are there. The solution is there, the engagement is there, the customers are there, right? Now that takes 3 months, 6 months or 9 months. It's a question of time in that sense, right? So we are not so curious about how long it will take. It's just that we have to get back to pre-COVID in that sense, in allowing us to freely engage with customers.
And you see, Anupam, just to add, some mines would be at the last mile, some mines would be at the initial phase. So depends. So it's not that after the travel starts, it will take 6 months or 12 months, but something will start moving hopefully from third quarter. That's what we feel. But let's wait and watch.
Okay, understand. And just one more question on your pass-through. So raw material I understand is a definite pass-through. But is freight changes also a pass-through? Because generally your competitor has freight is a pass-through.
Pass-through in most of the cases.
That is our intention, that freight also becomes a pass-through. We work towards it rather.
Okay. Understand. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next question is from the line of Varun Ginodia from Ambit Capital. Please go ahead.
Hello?
Yeah, we are here.
Good evening, Kunal bhai and Sanjay bhai.
Yes, good evening.
Thanks a lot for taking my question. So
Yes.
most of the questions of mine are answered. Just one question. You mentioned you had some volumes in Brazil in 4Q. Is it possible to give that number? Like how much was it from the Brazil out of total volumes in fourth quarter?
About 3,500 to 4,000 tons.
About 4,000 was from Brazil in 4Q. Okay. Rest of my questions are answered. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from Rita Kahil Ramani from Invesco. Please go ahead.
Hey, hi Kunal. Just two questions. First, what would be the probable price differentials between your price as well as against the competitor in Canada?
No, we don't have access to that, no. So we don't know what that could be.
Okay.
It's not fair to hazard a guess on it,
Okay. Secondly, we always say there is some kind of a lead back time for the customer to switch to a new supplier. So, how is it fungible for these mines to switch to another competitor in the interim?
Yeah, so because then you don't have a accountable supplier for that grinding ecosystem, right? So when it's in their interest to continue with whoever they are, sudden shocks like the interim duty, which was expected, which is part of the process, but still a material amount, tantamounts to that shock external factor, and to that extent, customers would want to look at the costs involved, and if there is there is a local producer which is Magato in that market, and I think that they should be able to migrate without significant challenges.
But that's a theory. But in practice, once a customer is onboarded, generally he will taste the benefits, and then he would not want to shift unless there are extraordinary circumstances. So there are very, very less number of such instances historically.
So that means, if situation normalizes, there's a fair level of confidence that...
No. How do you mean? What is your... so let's understand. Throughout this process of COVID, we have not disrupted our supplies to any customer, and that is what is evident from the volumes that we have done. So, from an existing customer standpoint, there is no such material thing that we have witnessed over last one and a half years. So that's point number one. And therefore, a customer, once he is starting to take our material and he sees the benefit, as I explained, there is hardly an instance where he has gone back to, say, theoretically the original supplier or the previous, or a high chrome converted customer who from forged to high chrome moves back to forged. Those type of things we have not witnessed.
Got it.
So this is more of a academic or a theoretical discussion actually.
Okay. Perfect. Thanks and good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from Praful Diwan, an investor. Please go ahead.
Hello, am I audible?
Yeah.
Yes.
Good evening, Kunal. I have two questions. First question is, most of our customers do not have high debtors days as what we have. So what could be the reason why we have such high debtor days? And the second question is...
Sorry, you said compared to whom?
Compared to our customers. Let's say if you are supplying to cement industry, they don't have such high debtors days, or mining industry.
So we are an industrial product long-term solution provider, and our debtor days are also analogous with their own production cycle time. So a working capital cycle is sum total of after they produce, how much time they stock, and then they sell. So their entire working capital cycle, generally if you see our debtors for last many years, it hovers around 70 to 80 days. And we are happy giving that much credit as a part of the normal. None of our customers have ever really seriously defaulted.
No, and also these large customers have their own credit policy. These are large.
It's their working capital cycle. It's not only their credit. This is not a traded item. they use it, then they produce their product, they sell it, they stock it, they distribute it. So I think it's a long-term situation, and 70, 80 days is a very, very normal credit period that we are happy to offer.
Okay. Okay. Now, my understanding was since we offer value-added solutions, the customer should not have a problem in paying much earlier than.
They are paying on time, absolutely.
Yeah, the number of days.
We are happy accepting the payment terms that these guys have. These are large companies. I would rather a conversation is on value add and the pricing and not on payment terms. There's no point in having a shorter debtor days. These are large companies. I don't think
we are not borrowing anyway.
Exactly.
Okay. Okay. And the second question is, we have, as you said, mainly there are two players in the international market, we and the competition. I presume our prices will be lower than the competition?
Not necessarily, not straight away. There could be some products where we are definitely cheaper. There could be some products where we are expensive. So there's no straitjacket comparison.
It's not a market-driven price, and we don't know the competition's pricing, right? So we operate in our own world. We understand the value that we bring to the table, and our pricing reflects that.
Okay. No, because what I was coming to that when you are discussing with the customer, you will have some fair idea from customer about the competition price.
Not really. Unfortunately not.
Okay. Okay. Because my next question was related with that. If our pricing is lower than the competition, our market share is higher than the competition.
No, it's not so simple. I'll tell you, we are in a very complicated set of economic conditions that each client, each customer operates within his geography. We are 10,000 miles away. We are an Indian player. Otherwise, we have many advantages to offer. So it's a very, very complex maths with which a customer converts. So many times it's not just a function of price. We have seen situations where they prefer to be with two suppliers, their global risk management policies, even if my competitor is at a higher price, they may want to prefer buying something from them, something from me. So, it's a complex set, but broadly speaking, we are having large capacities, scaled up capacities, having significant benefits that we offer and bring the customer to a situation where he saves on power, he saves on throughputs, he improves his consumption ratios, and he gets to benefit significantly, and therefore he comes to me and he stays with me for a very, very long period of time. I make enough margins. I have hardly any incidents of bad debts. So I know it's a very complex situation. It's not just a commodity that they don't take a decision just based on a price.
Okay. Thanks. And my last question is, in future, do you see the Chinese producers coming to international market? I mean, the competition.
So historically, for last 25, 30 years, we haven't seen China becoming a competition, serious competition outside of China, neither us nor Magatox, our competitors. So we don't see any reason because they work on a very different yardstick. We are working on solution capability as the main focus, and they work more on a standardized basis. So no, we don't see China as a threat at all. Okay. Of course, they will always be there as a price spoiler or many situations, but no serious competition at all outside of China.
Okay. Thank you, Kunal. Bhai.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. So we don't have anybody in the queue at the moment.
Yeah, so let's end the call.
Thank you so much. Thank you for attending the call, and we look forward to connecting with you at the end of first quarter. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
And as always, Sanjay and I remain available for any offline questions that are there.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of AI Engineering Limited, that concludes this conference. We thank you all for joining us, and you may now disconnect your lines.